Tonight, sheer depravity on horrific display, and it is in our lifetime. It's happening right now. According to the IDF, a handwritten note found on the body of a Hamas terrorist contained instructions to inflict unthinkable brutality in killing Jews. I'm going to tell you what the note's instructions are, but I warn you, it's pure evil. The note encourages jihadist terrorists in killing Jews to remove the heads, hearts, and livers of their Israeli victims. The note calls Israelis a disease that has no cure. This is the same Hamas that is getting some support on the streets of our nation and at universities all across our country where you may have studied yourself or where your children now attend. We're going to have more on that in a moment. Also tonight, the White House and the Defense Department showing heightened concern. The U.S.-led coalition forces now conducting live-fire exercises in the Middle East. This after more than a dozen attacks against American personnel and American bases in the region. In the last week, these attacks injured 24 American military personnel. The Pentagon now warning Iran's proxy terror groups, including Hezbollah and others, could soon ramp up attacks on American forces. The Wall Street Journal editorial board insisting that this war is President Biden's red line moment with Iran. Red line referring to a defining moment of then President Barack Obama's presidency, a time when Biden, of course, was vice president. In 2012, President Obama issued this warning to Syria.
It's a red line for us, and that there would be enormous consequences if we start seeing movement on the chemical weapons front or the use of chemical weapons. That would change my calculations. The world is watching. The use of chemical weapons is and would be totally unacceptable. And if you make the tragic mistake of using these weapons, there will be consequences and you will be held accountable.
Syria did use chemicals against its own people. 1 year later, 2 o'clock in the morning, an invisible poison spread to innocent Syrian citizens. Syria's President Bashar al-Assad had fired off rockets containing the nerve agent sarin. 1,400 innocent Syrian citizens, many of whom were children, died. Yes, President Obama and the United States' red line was crossed. The U.S. response? Well, rather than strike immediately, President Obama first decided to ask for a vote in Congress, and then ultimately the red line was not enforced at all. In short, the red line, just a threat. The United States didn't follow through. The whole world heard the United States say that, but we didn't follow through. Fast forward to today. The Wall Street Journal's editorial board warning, quote, failing to respond to Iran's many attacks is an invitation to Iran to keep calling the U.S. bluff. This could invite the provocation the White House is trying so hard to avoid, end of quote. Separately, the Journal also reporting in its news section that according to people familiar with intelligence about the October 7th terror attack, roughly 500 Hamas terrorists and Palestinian Islamic Jihad received specialized combat training in Iran. This training by and in Iran occurring just weeks before the attack. Meanwhile, Iran's boldness is on full display. Its top terror proxy groups met today in person in Beirut, Lebanon, the home to Hezbollah. Terrorist chiefs in a statement by Hezbollah, Hamas, Hezbollah, and Islamic Jihad were meeting in person to plot, quote, what the parties of the axis of resistance must do to realize a real victory for the resistance in Gaza and Palestine and to halt the brutal aggression. The Hezbollah statement went on to read, quote, there was agreement on continuing the coordination, end quote. Meanwhile, according to the latest Israeli estimates, Hamas is still holding more than 200 people hostage. Our next guest, whose village was one of the hardest hit during the terror attack, says that his family members are part of that group. Or Gat was the only one of his family members not at his parents' home when the unthinkable happened. His mother was killed, his sister and sister-in-law both kidnapped, other family members also kidnapped, managed to escape. Or Gat joins me. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Greta.
I'm sorry about you. I mean, it's terrible about your mother. What was she like?
Thank you. She was the great person, great woman in the world that, for me, that I know. She taught me so many things, but first of all, how to love, how to think about humanity, how to react and be and act with each and every person, no matter his religion, his gender, his color, anything. Just think of a person as a person and try to help him as much as you can.
Your sister and sister-in-law are hostage, right?
That's true.
Do you have any information at all about them?
except the fact that I know that they're taken by Hamas, and there is no bodies found whatsoever, not in the Gaza Strip, not in Israel borders, and not in the area around, so nothing else for me to know.
How did you happen to hear about this? You weren't home at the time, right?
Yeah, but I was in other place in Israel, a little bit north, with my friends from the kibbutz, and we also had alarms over there, so we communicate with the people from the kibbutz, my family and my friends, because I know them all. All of the 1,200 people lived in the kibbutz. Now it's a lot. Now it's less, but I know them all. They're all my friends. So I talked not only with my family. I talked by WhatsApp and by phone with other friends of mine if they could have answered. And that's how I realized there was alarms, there was missiles, and then there was a note from my friend that is from the first combat group that should react from the kibbutz, citizens of the kibbutz that should react if there is a threat until the IDF is coming. So one of them was with me. So I know he got the message that there is penetration of terrorists into the kibbutz, and that's the first time that I heard about it. And then we started to communicate with our family, and they were in the safe room listening to Arabic Hamas voices outside of their window, and they heard gunfires and a shooting fight. And now I know that shooting and talking they were listening to, that was other neighborhood next to them getting slaughtered.
I mean, you know, as I told before when we sat down, that I was in Israel in July, and we went to the Hezbollah tunnels in the north. You know, it's so unthinkable watching this. And I mean, this is you know, this obviously is very real to you. This is you. This is your family. I mean, is there any way to describe this? Because to me, I can't even think of words. It's so awful.
Yeah. So I know it's happened to me and not to anyone else, but like you take it. So it's really hard to believe for me right now, because I don't even have the time to be mourning for my mother, because I've got two family members, that my sister Carmel and Yoden, my sister-in-law, they are taken by Hamas. So it's really unrealistic situation for me, unrealistic situation to think about, when all of my kibbutz, all of my families that they're basically my family, and there is 1,000 people of them that are my family, that got slaughtered, that they ruined all of our kibbutz, which is, the ones that don't know what kibbutz is like a small village in Israel. So think they're coming to your city or your village, and they just slaughtered, sorry for the description, but butchering and cut organs of babies, children, women, whoever comes on their way, in their homes. Not army bases, not war kinds of things, not ground conflicts kinds of things, just entering to citizens' houses to hurt them and to kill them the most they can.
Or Gat, thank you very much for joining me. And obviously, you know, it's very painful for all of us. You know, we're great friends of Israel, and very painful.
Thank you very much for having me here, and I want to have one more statement.
Okay.
To emphasize that is really not a war between Israel or Hamas, Jewish against Islams. That's happened for 2,000 years, and unfortunately, probably will happen. But right now, it's a humanity thing, and everyone that have any influence about the situation need to bear in his mind the things that I say now. This is not a war. War is between soldiers on the borders. In this case, we're dealing with terrorists, entered into my home, took my family members and my friends, and killed anyone else. So now we need to take care of the living, because the dead ones, we're not going to get back. So anyone that think about it, don't think about it as a pro-Israel or pro-Palestine matter. It's a human matter. And I think if you will get to this conclusion, you will make the right decision. Anyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Greta.